Ding 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 ding.
Fubble Time.
Hey, hi there. I am Teresa Thome.
And I am Patrick Ziegler.
And we are
Fubble Time.
And we are
Fubble Entertainment.
He got some new direction just before. I wanted him to fancy up the little credit thing. So
oh, I did it right. Don't spoil it.
No, and we are Fubble Entertainment, and this is Fubble Time. It's okay.
Thank you.
It's okay. I forgive you. We're going to get it right one of these times. Hey, everybody. We are so excited. Aren't we excited?
We are.
We're not the only ones excited. Like, it's really fun to see people light up when we tell them who our guests are going to be.
I know.
We got lots of lighting up when we said our next guest. And
well,
I jump right in.
As it should be.
Yeah.
He lights up a room and we get lit up when he's around. So
that's right. I'm not going to do the full introduction because I'm going to talk about it in our first question. We think this stuff through. Even though we know this guy, we have questions for him that we're going to get to. He is a writer, a screenwriter. We're going to talk about all the different ways in which the pen flows from him or the fingers type. He is an Emmy Award-winning producer. Did I say screenwriter? He is a theater director. I'm going to get into more details, but let's bring this fabulous human being together with us, shall we?
We will. Here he is. Yay!
Hello.
Hi.
Rodney Vaccaro.
How are you?
We are fabulous. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm great.
I'm assuming Patrick's fabulous.
Yes.
I know. I love that you were like, we. And I was like, what is she going to say? She's talking for both of us, which happens quite often. But I am fabulous. And I am fabulous because of the conversation we had before you got into the room about writing in LA and things like that. So that was fun.
We're going to talk about that. But we want a big picture. Here's the thing. Rodney has a lot of different successes on his resume. There's a lot on that resume, baby.
I don't know. Successes. I have a lot of attempts.
No. You want to know
no.
what? I read somebody's IMDb or something the other day, and it was like unproduced works. And it had everything that they wrote that never made it anywhere as part of their... It was interesting. I was like, well, good for them. They worked their butts off on it. Write it down. But you have been... I was trying to think of all of the different ways in which your creative expression flows. I'm like, writer, director, musician, vocalist, ukulele, guitar, actor, director, writer, painter, storyteller, ad exec at one point, or ad creative. And then I was like, even baking, like this is your, cooking this way too. Your creativity is expressed in so many different ways. Where does it come from? Is it innate? And can it be learned? Like, just talk about being a creative being. Let's start with something small.
And I'll say part of him being creative being is raising two beautiful daughters.
Yes.
Right? Being a father and also your beautiful dog.
Right. He's over looking out the window right now. He's so bored with my accomplishments.
Is he done? He's totally done.
I've seen him look lovingly at you. I think he knows your accomplishments.
We're so in love right now. He and I. It's good. Yeah, it's good. Oh, I don't know. I come from a very creative family. We always have been. All of us really were. All of us were involved in the arts in various ways. But even my parents who were not involved in the arts were very creative people. And so the idea of making things, always making things, that was part of the drive. And then the other thing is I'm just very childlike. So I don't have that voice in my head that says you can't do this. I've never had that, so it's always been, like just the screenwriting thing. I came here when I was 40. Yeah, that's insane. You don't go to Hollywood when you're 40. You retire when you're 40.
You wait till you're 50.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But the thing is, I just don't see the world those terms. It's like, to me, it's always about, you wake up every morning, you're so excited. It's like, oh God, something wonderful could happen today. You know, I literally do get just thrilled every morning when I wake up. It's exciting, you know. But I've just never lived any other way. So I guess I don't have like a frame of reference of how it would be to not live like this. You know, this is just how I've always been.
Do you see other people? Do you think creativity can be learned?
There are some parts of this that I think that can be learned, and some parts I think you have to be born with. Like, I think taste is important. And I think that's something you can't learn. I think people have, you can develop a sense of taste. You can learn about taste, you know. But one of the things I've been fortunate with is that I seem to have feelings that are in line with other people's feelings. Like, I'm an empath. And that's an important thing for an artist, because you can speak for other people. And I mean, that's what I have very often, like, especially now, you know, that I do this on Facebook. I do what I call, it's active journaling, which means it's just my, you know, I've never kept a journal because I'm also very audience driven. You know, it's funny, like, I don't really create for an audience, but I like having an audience there. You know, I can't really rationalize just having thoughts that I keep to myself, although sometimes I should, you know, probably.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
But the thing is, I produce, and a lot of times people will say, oh, I was just thinking about that, or this is exactly the way I felt about that. And I think I've been lucky in that my feelings seem to follow the audiences, you know, so that's been fortunate. That's good.
That's interesting, because we kind of went a little bit into the next question, but it's, you know, do you utilize your different creative muscles, you know, because you are such a creative. I mean, I've been very fortunate to experience you as a director, and one of the best things I ever had an experience in theater was Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, thank you.
And what I learned from you in that I continue to you know, bring forward, and I know Teresa does too, is discipline. And this is serious no matter on what level you're doing it at. And you installed that, but you also installed just to express creatively as much as you can, bring it to the table. And so do you find that with everything that you're doing, do you find that those different muscles being utilized?
Well, it's always a blessing and a curse, right? You know, the thing is that, like, I take creation very seriously. So, like, I mean, if I'm going to do something, I really try to do it, you know? Right. But honestly, I am as creatively fulfilled writing a post on Facebook as I am getting a movie made.
Love that.
It doesn't matter to me. But the problem with that is that you're not driven to do these other things. You know, like, I think I would have had a lot more money right now if I would have been a little more driven to do that, you know. But really, well, it's like at the high point of my career, when my career was really going well as a screenwriter, I went back to Grand Rapids to direct shows.
Right.
And that really cut into what I was doing here.
Oh, did it? Okay.
But I was creatively fulfilled there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun to do those shows, and it's fun to write movies, and it's fun to make movies, and it's fun to bake, and it's fun to paint. You know, all of those things are great, but all of them are equally fulfilling for me. Just like this is a fulfilling time for me. You know.
Speaking of Sweeney Todd, Sherry Shepard Armstrong from Sweeney Todd says, "I love your Facebook posts."
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you, Sherry. That's sweet.
And it is. I love what you're saying about that, because I facilitate the artist's way. And it's one of my favorite things that I get to do. And when I do that, I always think about why you're doing what you're doing. You know, if you're there just to, you know, be famous, then great. Just go for that. But can you feel that same excitement when you're in a black box doing something for two people, rather than it having to be the big award and the big thing? You know, it's, if you can find that along the way, the journey, those moments are the most important thing.
You can find that same excitement sitting in a coffee shop overhearing a conversation. You know, you can find that same excitement some days when you're walking down the street and there's a tree in bloom, you know, and it really is the same feeling for me. There are no levels to that feeling. I mean, you look at the entire universe and your entire life as a work of art. And
Right.
that, I think that's what I've always done, that, and not consciously. It's just, like I said, I don't have any reference for not living in that way. It's just what I've always thought.
Well, it's interesting because our next question is actually because of your involvement in community theater, what is the value in community theater, just in general? Like, what is?
No, it's a wonderful
question. What did
question.
community theater do for you? You know.
Well, the thing is, our community, that community theater that we're talking about, to me, is a period of about 10, 12 years in the 80s, you know, that we had a really spectacular thing going.
Right.
The thing is, it was so fulfilling for me because it was people really operating out of passion. You know, it didn't have anything to do with money. It didn't, like, I've never cared about budget. I don't care. I never even asked about budget. I never even asked. It's like, if you gave me $100, if you gave me $10,000, you're going to get the same show. You know, it's just a different process. So like, there's so much passion. You know, I used to feel humbled by it. It's like, my life is this, you know, and I've devoted my life to it. But like, to look at somebody who had a regular job and worked all day long, 8 hours, and tried to manage kids and a husband, and then came into a rehearsal hall every night for 6 weeks, you know, and then another 3-4 weeks of performance. That's an incredible investment, you know, and you must be really in love with this process and really passionate about this desire to speak, you know, to do that, right? It's inspiring. You know, when people say to me, "Oh, I got so much out of your shows," I'm always thinking it's not even close to what I got. And it didn't have anything to do with my name on it or applause, or, you know, I mean, you were there with me. I used to avoid performance, like, and I'd avoid the audience afterwards because I just get embarrassed, you know, and I don't like people looking at me anyway. I'm
that same way after a show. I'm just like, I don't even want to talk to anybody after a show because, and Nancy Gallardo says hello.
Hi, Nancy, how are you? There's a real hero. That's a magnificent.
Right.
Yeah,
but it's an interesting thing around that, and especially as a performer, right? Because, you know, it's that thing of, if somebody does fawn over you, how much of that do you take on? If they don't, you know, if they say something mean to you, and then the ones that don't say anything, right? And I'm always like, don't make it about that. Make it about your own experience. So I'm the same way. I don't like to see people after a show.
Yeah. I mean, I think the two things, to me, the two keys to life are humility and gratitude. That's it, right? And every single artist who works should wake up every day with those two feelings, humility.
Oh my gosh.
Because the thing is, the fact that we create, it has nothing to do with us. Right. It's not my creation. It's something that comes through me. It's like Stravinsky referred to himself as a vessel, you know, and that's what you are when it's really working. If you're creating in order for people to say, "Oh, look at me," right? That's not the right impulse. That's not the way to do it, you know, because whatever it is that's happening is happening through you, not from you. You know? I was just very, very fortunate. I'm very grateful that for some reason I have those words and I have those feelings and I can get people to do these things, you know, and that's very exciting. It's very exciting for me. But like I said, I feel humbled by it. It's not about me. It never has been.
So when you left Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is where we know you from, and went to LA, I mean, what did you bring with you in terms of what you learned from community theater?
Well, everything, because this is interesting because, you know, like, I meet so many people here and they'll say stories like, "Oh, when I grew up, all I ever wanted to be was a screenwriter," right? You know, for me, it was a job. It was just a job. had been married. Joan and I had just gotten married, and we knew we wanted to have kids, and I knew I couldn't afford kids on what I was making in Grand Rapids as a community theater director. So she said to me, "What do you think you could do?" And I said, "Well, I could probably write movies." It was literally like that, you know? And so screenwriting for me has always been a job. And that's how I've approached it. And I think that was a good thing because I also didn't allow myself a way out, which is really important. It's like when I came here, I either had to make movies or we starved. I didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to take another job." I never said that, you know, and I never did that. So I had to make a living as a screenwriter. And that's a good thing, you know. I've got to say that recently it's kind of changed for me just because of this movie we're shooting right now in Oklahoma, this little movie we're shooting. But I'm very passionate about this movie. I'm very proud of it, and I'm really excited by making it. And I've been telling a lot of people, a lot of it is the relationship between the people on the set.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, the people that I'm working with are people that I've worked with. We're very close friends, and they're very encouraging. They're really wonderful. But it's really, in some ways, the first time I've really felt part of the film community. It feels like what it felt like doing community theater. We're doing something very small but really wonderful. And
why do you think that is, Rodney, on this experience? What do you think that
budget?
I think the lack of budget is.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that we don't have a lot of money has forced us all to be creative. The other thing is that the people that I'm working with they've always made me feel like the reason why we are there is this script, you know, and wanting me on set and listening to everything I say and trying really to get and some of them are more like, one of the leads is Joe Mazzello. He's just a great guy, you know, and he's a pit bull about the script. I mean, he fights me all the time if I want to change anything because he wants to stay. He said to me, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's him right now calling. He wants to change the script.
Go away. You have to stop. I'm sorry. Okay. The thing is that Joe's like a real pit bull with that script. And that's very gratifying. You know, it really is. To have people say to you, I was offered other projects, but I took this one because of the script. You know?
Which is interesting. So then, so in this case, being screenwriter is not just a job.
Right? That's
interesting. No, it's not. Because it's also, this story is about a couple coming to the decision to adopt. And that is something that Joan and I did.
Right.
You know? And so it's a very personal story. And I don't usually work on very personal stories. You know, I really do two types of screenwriting. It's like, my name is on these little tiny films that generally don't get made very well because they're usually like I only have 2 films that I like. The rest I think is awful. But it's because I very often attract guys who always wanted to direct, you know, because it's the kind of film they always wanted to direct. And there's a reason why they never did before, you know, because they don't have any talent. So like my agent has said to me, he said, you know, like every screenwriter has great scripts that are made into bad movies. He said, you have more than most. And that's really true. You know, I've got a ton of them, you know, but I do that kind of work. Those are small, very personal stories usually. And then I do doctor work, and those are on big movies.
Right.
That, you know,
that's a little bit of your bread and butter, the doctor work, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of it, you know, because there are some things I'm really good with in screenwriting. I'm really good with character. I'm really good with dialogue, and you know, so they bring me in to fix those things. So it's good.
I will never forget, Rodney, when we finished our script of the Santa Hat, and Teresa and I were like, we finished our script, and you went, you have a first draft. And I appreciated that so much. It was so great.
You know, you finish your script 6 years after it got made when you see it come on TV, you know?
Right.
And then you still want to make changes.
Yeah, and then you still want to make changes. Like
we got a few people saying hello. Dudry Smith.
Yeah, I see
hello.
Maria, I see Marty Smith. Yeah, hi, sweetie.
Maria.
Maria,
Yeah,
yes.
Maria's I love her. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
She so I'm going to grab this next question.
Yeah, go.
Because I think it goes into what you're talking about, which is you have made a good life for yourself in LA, and you have approached it as a job, and you started to just say, I can do this, I can do that. Like, oh, that's so funny. And then we'll ask Kevin Lustig's question after that. I'll ask Kevin's question first. Are you related to Brenda?
Kevin's a new friend. Kevin.
I can tell a story about that.
Then do it, and we'll come back to the other question.
Well, he asked for those. I don't know if everybody knows. They can see this. Everybody sees these.
Yeah.
So, Kevin asked if I'm related to Brenda Vaccaro, and we probably are. She's Sicilian, I'm Sicilian, and it's an odd name. Vaccaro's an unusual name, And her family, I think, comes from Texas, I think, where there's a wing of Vaccaros, but we probably are. But I remember years ago, I met her at a party, and she's wacky. She's a lot of fun, you know, but she's a big presence in the room, right? You know, and I walked up to her and I said, you know, every time I have a meeting, your name comes up. And she says, well, why is that? And I said, my name is Rodney Vaccaro. And she went, oh my God. She said, people have said that to me too. They wonder if you're my brother. And I said, yeah, they asked me that too. And I always just say, yes, I do. You know, so then we started talking, and her mother was there. Like at that point, it was like, she was a little tiny woman, chain smoking, and she had a voice like gravel. And she said, like, do you speak Sicilian? It's fun. She's, you know, she was great. But no, I'm not related to Brenda. She's a magnificent actress. She's a great actress. So
we saw her in I don't think it was with you, Teresa.
I was going to say, what? Wait, what?
Jake's Women.
Yeah.
Alan Alda, she was in that one.
Yeah, she was in a lot. I mean, she was nominated for Academy Award, wasn't she?
I think so.
Midnight Cowboy, I think.
Oh,
but,
is that it?
Yeah, and she used to live just down the hill from me. When we lived up on Woodcliff, she lived down at the bottom of the street, and I was constantly getting UPS packages for her.
Oh, funny. You're 2 degrees of, we should play 2 degrees of Brenda Vaccaro.
Separate, Brenda Vaccaro. Yeah.
So, but the question I was going to ask was, why do you think, I mean, I know you kind of joke and you're a little humble about your success, I think, hence the humility, but, you know, why have you been successful? Like what, I mean, I love your story about when you got there and you wrote how many scripts your first year? Like what was your motivation once you got there to say, dang it, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to get here.
It was like I said, I didn't have a choice, you know. And so I met with a couple of agents. We came out, it was so nuts. I mean, we came out and I said, okay, we'll come out to LA in a week and we have to get, Joan has to get a job, I have to get an agent, and we have to find a house in a week. And we did all 3 of those things.
Wow.
But I met with several agents. I met with a guy at William Morris. I met with a guy at CAA. And then I met with Richard Arlick at Gersh. And I really liked Richard. And Richard was representing people that I was friends with. He was Francine Pascal's agent too. And so he was a baby agent. And then we were talking. And he said to me, I can't represent you because they always say this, agents. I can't represent you because I have a full slate. But like your writing, so I'm willing to hip pocket you, which means that if I wrote something that he believed in, he'd send it to people and show it to them. And so I said to him, okay, here's the deal. I said, I'm going to move here anyway. And I said, I'll give you a script a month, every month. I'll give you a script and you see what you can sell. So that first year I wrote 12 scripts and we sold 5. Yeah, we sold 5, and 3 of them got made, which is pretty good percentage. Yeah. What people don't understand about writers, screenwriters, is that if you have 10 credits on IMDb, you've probably written 200 scripts.
Right, right,
you know?
Yeah.
The majority of what you do, either it doesn't get made, you still get paid for scripts. Sometimes they don't get made, you still get paid for them, you know? And also, a lot of times you might be replaced on a movie. That's happened to me a number of times, you know, and sometimes you get credit, sometimes you don't, depends, you know. So it's, you know, you only see the tip of an iceberg on IMDb.
And you're active with or have been with the Writers Guild. I mean, I know you've done some adjudication and stuff like that. Can you talk about that a little bit? That's really fascinating.
Yeah, arbitration is interesting. I've done a lot of it, although I've kind of pulled away from it now, but see, the Writers Guild, we're the ones who determine the credit on a movie.
Right.
So we determine who gets the credit. And that was fought for in negotiations because it used to be that the producers determined that. And you literally, in the 30s, you had guys who were giving like their masseuse credit for Christmas. You know, they'd put them on a movie. So there are lots of people listed on movies as writers who weren't writers. And we fought for it in strike and got it. And so now we have, basically we have a panel of 3 writers who are all anonymous. We don't know who anybody is. The scripts are all anonymous. There are no title pages. We get a script. We read all the different versions of the script, all the background material, and the writers write statements. And then we decide who has enough percentage in the script to get credit, because credit also determines whether you get residuals, royalties, the monies, all of those things are tied into that. So it's a big responsibility to do that, because you're working with somebody's livelihood, and you can't have more than 3 writers or 3 writing teams on any given movie. So you have to, it's difficult sometimes. So I've done movies where you had like 15 writers claiming credit, on big movies, and you have to pick 3, so sometimes it's hard. Yeah.
You can always default to me on any scripts that Patrick and I write.
It's really interesting, though. I've often thought that it would be
the ones that don't get made.
The ones that don't get made.
All of them so far.
I've often thought that it would be interesting to do a magazine called First Draft that published the script that's sold.
Wow.
Because very often the script that's sold is very different from the script that got made.
Yeah.
And sometimes they get better, and sometimes they get way worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A question, Rodney, because you're so smart, and your humor is so quick and intelligent, and maybe that's why it doesn't happen. But
sometimes,
did you ever look at the half-an-hour comedy world? Because that's what a world I love.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of from the past, not so much the current, but I do like a lot of stuff that's going to Hulu and Amazon and Netflix. Yeah. I'm just so curious, because that is a world that you really didn't do much in. You're more in the film screenplay, right?
Yeah, I've pitched small, like television shows and that kind of thing. I've developed several, and it's kind of a regret of mine. Like, if I had known, but you got to understand that when my heyday was happening in the 90s, none of this existed. There was
right.
And television is a very different animal than features. And I wish now, if I had my life to live over again, that like right when I started having success with features, I wish I would have devoted all of my time to getting into television.
Really?
Yeah. But I felt that features were a little more manageable for me, although now I think I would have had a better career in TV, because I would be great in a room.
Yeah.
I'd be terrific in a room. Now, I know everybody's saying, well, you can still do that. Well, you can still do that. But really, television is a young person's game. Everybody in the room is 20 years old, 25 years old.
Yeah.
And if you're not a showrunner,
are 30, 25, 28, 30.
I mean, like, showrunners can be older, but it's very rare that somebody, I'm 68 now. I mean, it's very rare that somebody at my age would be on a television show. Very rare.
Well, that's one reason I do love things like Kaminsky Project and Kaminsky Method and Grace and Frankie. Those are people writing those shows in their 60s and 70s now. So
not the majority of people.
No, but I mean the people that created them.
The people that created them, but the people that are writing those shows are
right.
in the 20s and 30s.
Right. We are getting weird
feedback. Been like that. But it's always been like that. Like, I remember seeing like a report on 60 Minutes that was like, they were talking about ageism. And I also don't think it makes any sense. I think writers can write their whole lives. I mean, like, the biggest comment I used to get all the time when I came in with scripts was writers would say, or producers, I'd come into the room and they'd go, oh, you weren't what I was expecting at all. And I know what they weren't expecting was gray hair, Right. I know that's what they weren't expecting, but once they said that, I knew also that I wasn't going to get a job in there, And I always thought to them, okay, look, you can hire me now, or you can hire me in 6 months to fix the mess that the 20-year-old that you're going to hire is going to give you, and that would happen all the time. They'd always call me after 6 months and say, can you come in for a few, that kind of thing. But, they had this report on 60 Minutes about it. And I remember like Larry Gelbart, I think they interviewed. And he was talking, and he said, he was talking about how unfair it was and everything. And I thought, Larry, when all those guys were on your show of shows, Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks, they were all in their 20s.
Right.
You know, they were all in their 20s then. You know, it's always been like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to do it when you have a family. It's a big job. You know, actually, the guy who is really successful from Grand Rapids is John McNamara.
Right.
John's a big showrunner in TV, very respected, really brilliant writer, brilliant writer, like far better than I am. And he runs a writer's room. His people love him, and he balances it all. He's a wonderful father, a wonderful husband. He's just a great guy, you know. But he's the exception. A lot of people that can eat you up. Although I gotta say, really, the people that I've met in this business, for the most part, have been wonderful. Just wonderful.
That's what Patrick and I have experienced. I mean, by and large, we've had a few characters, but
Yeah.
by and large, people have been really nice.
Right.
We've been really lucky. We really have. You know, we haven't sold the half-an-hour sitcom yet, but we've had a lot of great things along the way, you know, and I'm very grateful for that. And it's interesting, you talked about that energy of creativity and everything. It would be when I was in LA and we'd go to Aroma Cafe in Studio City, and there would be all these laptops open with all these writers. It energized me. And I would say that to Teresa, I didn't feel like competition. I felt like I'm in it, I'm doing it. You know what I mean? And that always felt good to me. And I feel that way around all of it. So, so one last question, since we're getting towards the end here, is that,
and I think it's your mic or something, Patrick.
It's mine?
The feedback. I think it's coming.
If I pull it, I'm going to lose sound.
Okay, so. Then we will just tolerate you.
Yeah. You recently posted that if you could be remembered for anything, it would be as a writer. Why?
I think it's always about, it always begins with the writer, you know. Even when I directed in the theater, I think I directed as a writer. I looked at it and thinking, how can I make these words work, you know? And so everything is there, and there's something about the creation process that first moment, you know, like one of my most memorable moments was the first time I walked on set. It was Run the Wild Fields. And we were up in Toronto, and it was funny because they shot Run the Wild Fields and 3 to Tango right around the same time.
Wow.
Both were shot. 3 to Tango was supposed to take place in Chicago, and Run the Wild Fields in North Carolina, and both of them were shot in Toronto right around the same time. And so if you look at those movies and the crowd scenes, it's all the same people. It's just they're in different costumes, you know, they're in different costumes. So I remember the first day I walked on set, it was the church scene, and that was a big scene. And there were all of these extras, you know, that were extras and semis and all these period cars and I mean just hundreds and hundreds of people. This was back when even a small movie was a big movie. Now it's very different, you know, but hundreds of people all walking around. And when you're a writer, you're anonymous. Nobody knows who you are.
Right.
I'm walking around in all of this, and I'm looking at this huge thing that's going on, and I'm distinctly thinking about the night I came home from the cottage bar 15 years before at 2 o'clock in the morning and thought, I want to write a movie about a conscientious objector during World War II. I want to write a play.
Right.
Yeah.
And I sat down. I mean, that moment at 2 o'clock in the morning, 15 years before, was such a lonely moment. It was such a quiet, intimate moment. And here it was 15 years later, and there were all of these people whose livelihood depended on that moment. And that was a very exciting thing to realize, because you not only had that idea, you sat down and realized it was now in the world. And it's the most exciting, like in this movie in Oklahoma, when you watch a scene and you see two people just having a dinner conversation, and you realize that happened in your head years ago, and you're seeing it here. It's very exciting. It's very exciting, you know. So I think that's why. I have a great deal of respect for writers. They really don't ask for very much, you know. They just want to give these, in general, writers don't. And you just want to give these things to the world. Right. And that's a very noble thing to do. It's a very noble thing to do. So I'm very, like I said, humbled and grateful that I've been allowed to do that. It's remarkable.
That's beautiful.
And that is a perfect note to end on because it's so beautiful.
Thank you, guys.
Rodney, it's just beautiful. We love having this dialogue with you. We just...
I know it always feels like it could go on and on and on.
I know.
It's fun. I'll do it anytime. I like talking to you guys. It's always a ball.
Well, and I'm sure we've got it. I mean, I'm like the other 10, 15 questions have to be, what's your best story? What's your, you know, I mean, there's so many. There's such a, one of the things when I was coming up with your, trying to write your bio, I didn't call you and ask you for a bio. Usually we have people supply them. And I was like, I wrote writer / screenwriter / I think I even wrote storyteller at some point because you're also a storyteller.
I had it on the Chiron, but I took it down because I spelled your last name wrong. I didn't have my glasses on.
I didn't notice. Yeah, I think myself mainly as a storyteller.
He fixed it. But yeah, I mean, you're just, I was chatting with somebody once and he said, what do you do? And it was the first time I claimed I'm a writer. It was the first time I claimed that. And I'm like, because I do, I write. No, I didn't say writer. I said I was a storyteller. That's what I said to him. And I'm like, storytelling comes in grant writing. It comes in fundraising. It comes, you know, that's so.
Sherry Shepherd says, thank you. Love this.
Oh, thank you.
But I love that, Rodney. I love what you're saying because, you know, I've stepped into this world of writing myself and I know what I can write and I know what I can't write. And the same idea of that feeling, and I'll never forget when we did the presentation of our sitcom and having those people read your words of Marion Ross and Ed Asner and getting that first laugh from the audience. I just was like, oh, I'm getting chills saying it right now. It was amazing to know that audience was hearing it and enjoying it. I just loved that, and that's always been a focus for Teresa and I. It's like we you know, Gary Marshall said he wanted to create recess television, meaning you wanted to go and have fun. And I think that's a little bit who I am, is, you know, creating recess for people. Yeah.
Great.
How fun.
So look at that. We've found a way to end on us.
Yeah, excellent.
I'm yes-anding.
You are. I am too. I was yes-anding you.
Look at what
Why does it say that, Rosa and Stephan? Did she just write that, Bobby Morocco?
Because I probably spelled your last name wrong, and so she's being.
Oh, Bobby Morocco. I get it. Yeah.
And we're getting fun comments. Oh,
said it fabulous. Thank you, sweetheart. It's good.
Thank you. So we'll take you out and we'll say goodbye to everybody. So thank you, Rodney.
Stay safe, everybody. Okay.
Oh, so great.
I love that man. Love that man.
Right. I know.
Thanks for being with us. We plan to be back here next week.
Yes, we took a couple of here and there's off, but we're back on track, right?
In July, we're going to post our July schedule. We've got some people lined up. You're going to be excited to see who we get to talk to next. We like to talk to people who are involved in the arts and theater, entertainment, whatever. We haven't really had any whatevers on. It's been mainly the arts. We haven't had a whatever yet. We'll have to do that. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. This was fun. I'm glad everybody came in. And Roseanne said last thing. She said, what does it say many years ago? I did a flyer for you and listed your name as Bobby. Oh my God, I love it. We got some wicked funny people in Grand Rapids and right at top of that list. So as we always say, gotta get out of here. Gotta go. Bye, everybody. Thanks.